Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and I'm officially joined by the greatest mustache in the business, Mr. Jason. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. It's good to be here, and I appreciate the shout out to the mustache.
Yeah, I mean, look, a certain type of confidence. Here's my issue with the mustache. I won't wear a mustache because then I have to start wearing crushed velvet. And I have to start talking in gold chains, and it's like a whole thing. Yeah. I remember a Seinfeld episode when he was talking about, I don't want to be an orgy guy. I'm not an orgy guy. And he's like, then I'll have to start wearing like baggy clothing, and I'll start to have
you got to get totally different footwear, I think is what he says. He's like, I got to wear sandals all the time now. This mustache comes with black eyes. So it's not the orgy mustache. It's I think it's that one.
I love it. So what I like to do with my guests, I like them to start their story wherever they want to, and we'll go from there. So I'll let you take it away.
Sure, man. Well, listen, so it's the Construct Your Life podcast, which is right up my alley. I'm somebody who is very much all about engineering the lifestyle that I want. I spend every single day, working on the things that I love. And so kind of how we got here was I was a veteran of the United States Army, got out of the Army in 2008. And kind of have always been looking to get back on an elite team like that. We weren't special forces. We were digging holes in the desert, but we were a really tight team. And so the closest I've been able to find to that has been the teams that I've been able to build in the businesses that I've run. And through that have been a real big believer in sort of, let's call it farming my own attention span. So I sort of lean in on those things that I'm super passionate about and that draw me in. And I really try to avoid having to do those things that drain energy from me and take things away from me. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to identify folks who get energy from doing those things that I don't want to do. So the classic example of that would be, if I love to do sales, but I hate to do admin, well, there's somebody out there that loves to do admin and just would not ever want to do sales, right? So I've had a CrossFit gym in Chicago called Bucktown CrossFit for over 12 years. I was able to sell most of that business over the last 2 years to my brother and former second in command, Andrew Westcott, who's doing a great job with it. That community has been the real teaching lesson that I should be around communities like that. And so to started out as an athlete, became a coach, started a gym with some friends in the Army. And sort of the evolution of that life cycle led me to coaching other brick and mortar gym owners, which I did for about 3 years, at first with a large organization and then a business of our own. I did that for 2 years. And now to try and scale that even further, I have nothing to sell now at this point. I now do a podcast for entrepreneurs, and I don't just focus on just fitness. So at each step of the way, I'm trying to scale the amount of folks that I can reach out to with kind of my message, but also message from folks like you who recently was on my show as well.
I don't mean to go like 9 layers deep right off the bat, but one of the issues I see, and farming my own attention, I love that. I'm going to sit with that for a while. But what's interesting about people is people don't want to write their vision out because they're worried about being kept to it. If I put it on paper, then this is what I got to do. And as I look at your life, I think you have a lot of the same qualities I do. I'm a builder. And then once there's work to be done, I'm gone. And it's not like, I don't mean like I'm not working. It means that the work that to keep it going every day is not my thing. I'm here. Here's my advice. Let me coach you up. You go do the work, or you find the person that does the work. And I've kind of cultivated that. But as you've learned more about yourself, it feels like your business has learned about itself too, and what you're willing to do. And, one of my jokes with entrepreneurship, it's not what you're willing to do as you grow. It's what you're willing not to do anymore. That's truly the business that you're seeking.
Yeah, I love that line, man. I'll have to remember that one. I'm going to sit with that one for a while. I've been very fortunate And I attribute this to the military service where, a lot of folks will ask, why did you fight? Did you fight for this? Did you fight for that? And almost all soldiers will tell you that the reason that they enjoyed the military was the people that they were right next to, right? Whether they were in a foxhole, which I wasn't, or whether they were digging a hole and running cable, which is what I did. It was that team that I was working for. And so I'm very fortunate in that as an entrepreneur solo, there are all sorts of things that I'm unwilling to do and would be willing to let go. But ever since that military service, there's nothing that I wouldn't do when I'm held accountable to somebody else, or at least when I hold myself accountable to somebody else. So I'll never be late, even if it's my meeting. I'll never not have that PDF ready. If I'm hiring somebody, I'll never not have their 4 hours documents ready, their, the structure set in place, a training program for them, because I've made those mistakes in the past and I just will never allow myself to show up that way for somebody else. I've both been on the receiving end of that and the giving end of that. And so to me, even right now, there's, I roll jujitsu 5 days a week. And I go 5 days a week, probably more than I should, because there's a guy that's me when I was 24 years old. Shout out to Mo. Mm-hmm. He's 24 years old. He's 225 pounds and he's got the whole world in front of him. He's a monster. So I in my mind, I have that little chip in my mind, not a chip on my shoulder, but chip in my mind of like, I'm going to show up for him. And that keeps me accountable. Does that make sense?
No, dude, I heard this was when my life was in fucking turmoil. And I heard Gary Vee say this line, I was creating the business, I was doing that, but the number one thing that I was not up on was my health. And he goes, I just didn't give a fuck until I cared about my trainer so much that I paid him. So fast forward to me.
Yeah.
There's two things I refuse to be, to ever happen to me. I am never going to be the cog in the reason that we can't get stuff done in my business. Never. If you're waiting on documents from me, the wheels have broken off. The second thing is, in 2 hours, I'm doing it. I, as a coach, am learning to deal with multiple energies as we're getting bigger and bigger in companies. And I can't turn my shit off. I'm getting better. My walks in the morning, but I will pay a bodywork specialist for an hour and a half. And that is my recharge button because I paid them that money. The phone goes away. I actually meditate. And so it's not an option for me whether or not I have to. I know that I'm more. And the thing is, this is the same thing I tell my business partners and the people that work for me. I got kids to feed. Yeah. And they're like, what? And I'm like, I got to feed your kids. And so that's my fuel, and that is like keeps me going every day is to stay consistent is my business partners and their kids. Yeah. I don't have any of my own kids right now, but when I take on that responsibility and that's kind of like my secret weapon to never have the fire be put out.
I love that, man. And I agree. I really resonate with the idea of having a payroll and viewing it as like having your own kids to feed. Right. And we've had, a pretty high 5-figure monthly payroll for a long time that we've been responsible for. I'll tell you what, man, if you want to figure out what you should be doing every day, retire for 6 months and pay attention to what you do. Because I haven't worked for anybody. I have no clients. I have no team. I have nothing but the podcast that I make and a couple of, they're hired consultants that do the podcast editing and things like that. But I have nobody that I'm accountable to other than myself and my family. And I find that I'm on the phone every single day with entrepreneurs, every single day. I'm doing things every single day with my body, whether it's jujitsu or rucking through the dunes. I live here in Indiana Dunes National Park. I spend tons of time with my newborn daughter, Lucy, and my wife. And I don't do anything that I don't want to do, but I can see where I can make a business out of that.
Yeah, I think that you're comfortable in your seasons.
Yeah, sure.
And my big push against America is when you leave the job, you're supposed to have the answer within an hour after leaving the job.
Don't get me wrong, bro. I have those things. I can't help it. I'm on that razor's edge of like, no, I've earned this. I want to take this time. But then I feel it. I feel that lack of juice, man. I've thrived so long on that.
Something we're doing in our business that we're creating a consulting company and we're all busy. That two of them have families. And we literally had this conversation. How much time and what day are you willing to account for this? And when you sign up for that day, this is what we're going to do it. So literally we're going to create a business. This is, I'm kind of like loving the expertise, like the expert. This is when we coach Wednesday afternoon, Thursday afternoon, or like, Tuesday morning. That's it. And if the clients can't fit in that, sorry. And we're going to see. I'm very intrigued, but that is the time that we allowed it to it. I can manipulate my schedule around, but we ran the numbers, and I'll be honest with you, we make more money than most businesses. And but it's almost like us choosing ourselves first, which then in turn the clients are going to choose us because we chose ourselves first.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I've seen that across a couple of different things that I'll share. One is I've been a nutrition coach and I've led nutrition coaches for thousands of transformations. And it didn't start. We didn't have any before and afters, maybe one or two in the first 5 or 6 years of my business. But as soon as we drew a thick, dark line of exactly what you could do and what you couldn't do, as soon as we started to say no to those people that were like, oh, but I got a birthday party. Oh, but I got this. As soon as we started to truly define the vessel that we expected our clients to live within, all of a sudden I get 1,000 5-star reviews. All of a sudden I get 1,000 transformations that totally change people's lives. The other one, working with entrepreneurs, and this one is across the board, almost every entrepreneur that I've worked with that has struggles, it's because they're trying to be the variable between their clients and their staff and reality. In other words, their clients and their staff are like, yeah, but I'm special. I need this special treatment. And then they make that first decision to say like, you're right, you are special. So I'm going to, stretch myself to fill the rest of this equation out. And because of that, the relationship is broken from the start. Does that make sense?
The number one thing that I did to elevate my business is lose my ego. Okay. When I first started coaching, I'm going to be everything to everybody. I'm going to be spreadsheet Austin. I'm going to be motivation Austin. I'm going to be trainer Austin. Sure. And now I go, hey, you need a trainer? Talk to Chase Tolleson. Hey, you need a spreadsheet guy? Talk to Conrad. I don't do that. No, Austin, but nope, you didn't listen to me. Well, how much are they going to charge me? Nothing. Well, they're just going to talk to me? Yeah, because we've got an agreement. And then we're just kind of like, the community is helping the people. There's no egos and everybody's getting it done. And what happened to me when I started in real estate, I'm like, I'm going to learn all this stuff. I'm going to be multifamily. I'm going to do this, blah, blah, blah. And I spent like 1.5 years listening to the thing. And I was like, why am I doing this? My friends are the best syndicators in the country. Why would I try to be better than them? Because I'm half-assing it. So I just decided to be the coach, the consultant. And the moment that was my focus and I positioned myself in that space, I started collaborating, JVing with people. And the thing is like the guy that all he does is syndicate apartments is going to be way better than me spending 2 hours a week on it.
Yeah, I think that's really intelligent. One of my mentors, Alex Charfin, talks about the levels. And in the beginning, if let's say you're a personal trainer in your garage, you get to be everything for everybody. But at a certain point, the number one question you have to ask is, how do I lower pressure and noise and create space for my team to help me? Now, when I get to that next level, how do I help my team? That's when I can start to really do things well. But in that first stage of breaking away, of being this expert practitioner that most entrepreneurs started out as, is we have to allow ourselves to let our team help us so the business can rise above, right?
100%. And it's interesting because one of my mentors asked me the other day, he said, your energy is kind of like, it's kind of like, he said, I felt it. And it was like a little different. And I was like, well, here's what's happening. The clients are getting bigger. The responsibility is getting bigger. The real estate deals are getting bigger. The businesses are getting bigger. And what's happening is I'm smashing through levels of my identity that I don't even have a chance to get comfortable with. Yeah. Like we're like, oh, there's this really big deal. And then on Friday, there's an even bigger deal. And you're like, well, I was going to enjoy that and kind of live in that identity. And now we're like 20, and so it's like, and now I'm just like, okay, so what's the thing? Okay. The thing is like, show up every day. And one of the things I was just telling one of my good friends who I interviewed on the podcast, I tell my business partners that every day I'm going to earn the right to continue to be your business partner. I'm not going to take it for granted. I'm going to go out and work for you every day in my role, which is to attract, which is to be on podcasts, which is to have sales calls, which is to talk to people, and know that I'm out there putting it in for you. And I don't take this relationship for granted. It's the same thing with your spouse. It's the same thing with your kids. Like your kids don't need to be there just because you're the dad, because that's like what it's supposed to happen. No, you need to show up as a father, as a spouse, as a husband every day and earn their love over and over and over again. And when you carry that with you, that's super powerful.
So I don't know you that well, but I don't mean to flip this on you. I don't know you that well, but I've talked to you a few times and it's like very clear that you're on this trajectory, right? Like you're blasting off. And so I guess my question in response to what you just said is, are you the rocket ship or are you in the rocket ship?
Flexing one.
Because it sounds like sometimes when you're talking, it sounds like you're the rocket ship. Like you're going to carry this motherfucker out of space.
Yeah, 100%.
And sometimes when you're talking, it's like, no, these guys are the fuel for my rocket ship, and then we can fuel their rocket. You know, and so I was curious what you would think about that.
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think one of the greatest things I heard this week in my book was, you're not a leader until you can lead somebody who can lead somebody.
That's great.
And so like, that's my thing, is like, here's where I am different than most. I am all those things. I'm the guy that's you can cry on my shoulder, and I'm the guy that's gonna punch you in the throat, all in the same token.
Sure.
Like my friend said this comment about me. It was like, you literally can lift me up and beat me up in the same sentence. And it's like, Angelo Cisco told me, he's like, remember that the car changes, the driver doesn't. And I feel like, as an entrepreneur, as a CEO, as a visionary for certain things, my clients come first, my business, and then so like what I need and what they need are two totally different things. Like, I just love the game. Like the game is so crazy. Like to not be a drunk, to be healthy, and to be happy and just running wild. They call me the stallion. They go, the stallion needs to run out to the field and just get all his energy out. And then he comes home and he's like kind of exhausted. And it's like, okay, what are we actually going to do? Right. And I've just kind of put people in my life to keep guardrails on my ideas. But
you know what I call that?
What's that?
I call that Kentucky windage. I'm so crazy as an entrepreneur that I just need to realize, like, I'm here and like everybody else is over here. So I just take 15% off when I like communicate with some folks, and I call that Kentucky windage.
I love it, because if you left me to my own devices,
exactly,
we'd have 65 businesses, and hey, before this is all said and done, we might. But I'm just saying, but like understanding that. But like, this is the difference between me. Some of those businesses are not predicated on making money.
Mm-hmm.
Some of those businesses are a home for impact. Some of those businesses are a home for that entrepreneur. Some of those businesses are a home for a job, and I don't need those to make a ton of money, because the horizon of that business is longer. And I think it's a very intricate, deep layer of thinking that a lot of people don't think about, because they're not looking at their life as an entire circle. They're saying, this is how I make money. These are the only things I should be focused on. But it's like, you do your jiu-jitsu, you do your hiking, you like to be outdoors. And like, the thing is like, what you're doing right now, if I had to guess, is you're sitting back, you're doing the podcast, you're meeting interesting people, you're spending time with your family, you're storing up energy. And you're kind of seeing which next kind of integrator you're going to put this person and everything. And they asked Winston Churchill at the end of his life, how did you do so many things? And he said, conservation of energy.
Oh, wow.
And it's like, everybody's like, man, you're just so excited. I'm like, no, I'm just excited like for everything, because like we have such an opportunity where the barrier to entry to start business is so much easier. The opportunity to get healthy is better than it's ever been. We know more about food than we've ever known. We know more about the mind than we've ever known. And like, some people are just sitting around going, well, I don't know how you do it. I'm like, dude, there's 40,000 podcasts and YouTube channels that says, I don't know, drink water, eat well, move your body, lift weights, smile.
Yeah. You know what's hard about that though, Austin, is that I feel like, especially small business entrepreneurs that are struggling, I feel like everybody wants to be Sisyphus pushing the ball up the hill. Because what I find is most people that are struggling in their business are just trying to do what they've been doing and failing at harder. Right. And they're like, how can I possibly, all I do is take sales calls. How can I take more sales calls in an 8-hour period or more? And it's like, dude, you're just pushing a heavier stone, or you're pushing it a little harder, but you're still going to roll it down every single day and you roll it back up. And I think that the folks that are able to find a way to conserve energy, or some jiu-jitsu metaphor that I could come up with if you gave me minutes, is to actually say like, all right, well, obviously the thing that I'm doing isn't working. I used to, in CrossFit classes, somebody would come in and they moved poorly. They'd have duck walks, or they would, push off the table when they stood up. And I'd be like, look, your instincts got you here. You just have to accept that your instincts were wrong. And if you can be humble enough to do that, then I can help you get better.
But when you're an entrepreneur, how do you know when you're doing the wrong thing too many times or when you're stuck?
It's a great question. I think that if you've tried in earnest and it feels impossible, it probably fucking is. If you've tried in earnest and it feels impossible, it is. I don't know if that means you're not the one to do it or the technique or tactic is wrong. One thing I think is people think that they need to, there's tactics and there's strategy, right? And a lot of entrepreneurs, especially guys like me and you visionaries, right? We want to do it our way. And I think for strategy, that's great. We're going to climb the mountain, but we're going to do it in a different route than ever been done before. But if you want to change the tactics that people have developed before you because you're so special, it's like, oh, we're going to climb the mountain, but we're not going to use the same handholds. We're not going to use the techniques or the belay techniques that people have used for hundreds of years. We're going to do it our way. We're going to use slinkies instead of fucking ropes. Well, yeah, man, that's not going to work. And so I think there is this thing where people are like, I want to do a sales funnel, but I'm going to call it a sales spiral. And it's going to be a little different. And we're not going to track it on a spreadsheet. We're going to write it in chalk. Like, whatever. I don't know. This is breaking down, but like the idea is like, I think that most entrepreneurs think that they will succeed by just getting better and working harder at what they're already good
at. Morgan Housel wrote a book, Psychology of Money. He said the number one issue where you're not where you want to be is that you think you're fucking special.
Yeah.
And he was, and what he wasn't saying like you're not a special person. He's saying that I have a client who I coach his whole company. And one of the things that he has taught me, because we both, if you put us on an hour Zoom call, we might come up with 60 business ideas. Like that's just how we are. Right. And he said, look, here's the deal though. I'm not pulling anything. We are not starting a business without things that we can't pull off the shelf. Meaning we're not going to build a car without parts that don't already exist. Once we've proven that we can execute on those parts, then we gave ourselves the right to go do the other thing.
Yeah.
And it's that lesson that's like, it's really simple. There are businesses that you don't find sexy that are really, really successful.
Sure.
Like people that make tons of money doing the same boring thing over and over and over again. And I like Mike Rowe. I like him a lot. And he was on Ed Milet's podcast. He was talking about, what you don't understand about all those people on dirty jobs, that 60% of those people were millionaires. And he's That's like, awesome. And like, they didn't love it when they started, but they found a passion for what they were doing amidst action. And so the thing is like this is another thing about entrepreneurs. Just because you were unsuccessful in said business sector doesn't mean that you don't have skills that can move over to another business sector and just dominate. And so like, don't think that you got to start from zero. If you've already been down the road, just take what you learn and then place it over this thing, because there are multiple things that you could do. You could, start this business or this gym or whatever. And like what I've noticed is everybody that I friends with that were in the gym business, they seem to be moving out of it or recalibrating more to a holistic mindset coach, not just physical stuff. And as you've seen the business from the inside out, the CrossFit place and everything, like what is the shift that's obviously COVID, but what is the shift that's happening in the marketplace?
Let me address that. I want to address something you said earlier, though. Yeah. One of the things you said was you're talking about my friend Mary Tautimes, who I had on the show. She's great. You should meet her. She says, bloom where you're planted. Right. But I think the thing, when you talk about having a skill set and trying to shift to another industry or trying to shift to another job or trying to start over, I think the problem is the entrepreneurs typically look at the skills or the efforts or the things or the team or the extremity, right? In fitness, we have this concept of core to extremity, and everybody wants to worry about extremity and nobody wants to focus on the core. In that case, that's your ego, right? It's what you are doing. It's who you are. It's how well you know yourself. And that's the thing where in that proposition you made, where that person would be successful by just saying like, I'm looking in the mirror and I don't see a real estate agent, so I'm going to move on to something else. And that brings me to answering your question about fitness. I think fitness is so special because I think fitness is something that is both virtuous and specific, but it's broad and specific, right? We're sort of, especially CrossFit, there's this concept of everything is everything, be more human. These are like marketing slogans, but they're real, man. And so a CrossFitter will start with, I want to learn how to do a pull-up. I want to learn how to do a clean. And so they start with the physical And then they realize very quickly, okay, it's mental. I have to like turn off that anxiety and I have to just be able to just move fluidly and do this thing. And then it turns into nutrition. And it's like, okay, cool. I'm just going to eat, I don't remember the phrase off the top of my head, but basically paleo. I'm just going to eat, paleo or organic foods. And now I don't like to drink as much and I don't go out as much as I used to. So I'm going to hang out and do barbecues with these other freaking primal gorillas. And so pretty soon you realize that it's this whole, Vitruvian man and woman that comes out of, trying to get your Fran time down, as opposed to, I've worked with a bunch of personal trainers. I've worked with a bunch of, boot camp folks, and some of them have that and some of them don't. It's not to disparage them. For some people in fitness, it's just a job, but CrossFit in particular, and this sort of primal movement, I mean, that's primacy. It's everything. And so it's sort of like improving who you are. I feel like the things that I've gravitated to in my life have been capital T truth, like undeniable truth. Things like Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's the truth. And MMA even more so, it's the truth. Does it work or does it not work? Let's find out. CrossFit is the truth, meaning that if there's a better way to do that pull-up, it's cool. Let's do it that way. If there's a better way to pick up that weight, it's cool. Let's do it that way. I've watched that happen in real time. Podcasting, it's the fucking truth. Right? There is nobody talking in your ear right now. There is no sponsor that you have to consider about how you respond to the next thing. These things that are just truth, that are undeniable, that's the only thing that I have interest in, if that makes sense. And I just can't tolerate, I can't abide anything else.
It makes complete sense. I was in Dallas and I trained with a UFC fighter.
Cool.
It's the first time. It's younger guy. I don't really remember, but he was in another thing. It was a friend of a friend, but long story short is that I never in my life sweat so much and hurt from the ab workouts he was making us do on the medicine balls. But nice. Here's what they don't tell you. I've never been more tired in my mind before. The amount of concentration that you had to keep to jab, hook, man, I wasn't prepared for that. And the question that I have to ask anybody that's listening, like, when's the last time that you physically exerted yourself? When's the last time that you pushed? Like, I've got a coaching client right now who's took up boxing the last 2 months, changed his entire life. And he was like telling me about what he loves about it. And I was like, we had a coaching call yesterday. And I was like, yeah, that sounds a lot about life. Stay focused. Pay attention or you're going to get knocked the fuck out. I was like, oh, that sounds about life. Like, pay attention, stay focused, care about yourself, work through mentally, drink enough water. And we're my thing with people is we're saying that we're all in, but we're not really all in. We're saying that we're doing it, but we're not really doing it.
Well, and here's the thing, first of all, my friend Robin Lalonde, Coach Robin Lalonde, shout out to Robin. She has a phrase, collective elective suffering. We get together in a group and we agree to suffer together. That creates bonds that are totally different than the ones at work. And by the way, the best bonds at work are the ones with folks that you've gone through it together with, right? And so it's this same thing. And so, I don't have a program or anything like that, but if I did, you better believe that everybody's doing collective elective suffering every single week. I don't care how, whether it's hot yoga or jujitsu or CrossFit or going for runs in groups, right? But this idea that you're going to sit on a Peloton and have, a robot scream at you and that's going to make you somehow, a better person. Nah. Are you going to burn some calories? Sure. But to me, the thing that the reason why the average client engagement at our gym was always years longer than the average client engagement at, insert other gym, I'm not going to disparage anybody, was because there was so much more going on. Like I said earlier, people are holding themselves accountable to their training partner, to the group, to they want to go on the ski trip that we're going on or whatever. Does that make sense? Go ahead.
No, I've spent a lot of time because my client is in the crypto meta universe NFT space. And cool. I was in that space for like 2.5 seconds and it clicked. Community.
Yeah. Yes.
Community. That's all it is. Uncensored community. And that's what the podcast has brought. And that's what the NFT and web space and web3, it's like these people just want community. How do we get a group of individuals that are driven, excited? That's all these things. If you look at CrossFit, same thing, community. Like the question that you have to ask yourself is, where's your community? Like, and the question is, do you know who you are enough to know what your community is? Like, I don't like soul search, fine, or get in the community, don't like it. move over. But ultimately, that's what everybody's missing in the space. They feel, especially entrepreneurs, sometimes they feel alone. They feel like, oh my God, I'm just drowning in my business. I can't. Is this really what I signed up for? And they're not. There was a reason that they started said business, and now we might be 2 months, 6 months, a year, 6 years in, and going, I feel like I'm away from the reason why I started it in the first place.
That happens to everybody.
Because it ain't less time.
Yeah. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I went to a mastermind. It was the Barbell Mastermind. Shout out to the guys that do Barbell Shrugged. So Angelo Cisco, actually, you mentioned him. He was after me. He started to go to that group. But either way, I thought I was just a fitness guy. And it turns out I'm more entrepreneur than fitness, because I showed up there and I was like, oh my God, these are my people. We talked till like 2 a.m. before 2 long days of entrepreneurs. I'm taking notes. I'm getting up. And I've never gone to a mastermind and not left with way more energy and ideas and friends. I stay in touch. One of my competitors of mine, Will Hurst, Will Taylor, those guys have competed with me in this market space. They're like brothers to me. I travel to their houses to different states, because to me, this idea that we're competing with each other as entrepreneurs is complete bullshit, right? You do your thing, do it as best as you can, and there will be enough pie for you, sir. I'll do my thing and there'll be enough pie for me, right? In CrossFit, we always say you're not competing with the CrossFit gym down the street. You're competing with the couch, right? Because right now, 8% of people have a gym membership. So let's get cracking,
8%. Oof.
Something like that. That's an old stat, but it's something like 8%.
That's rough. So if somebody is looking to just change the narrative, right? They're not, mentally, physically, it doesn't really matter, but they're just kind of like, maybe they're in a business they started, they don't love it, maybe they're unhealthy, which I see more often than not. Where does one even begin?
It's a great question. A few things. One is from a technical perspective. I love Traction. I love the EOS, the Entrepreneur's Operating System. It provides you the answers to the series of questions that your business have. I always tell people, your business will ask a fixed number of questions of you as an owner. It's up to you whether you ignore them or answer them, or how you answer them. Traction is a great starting space because it's gone through and it's done the legwork of answering those questions. And then as the entrepreneur, can you tweak some stuff and change some things around? Sure. But from a mindset perspective and an ego perspective, I'm a big fan of two different things, and I do both of them weekly. One is collective elective suffering, putting yourself in a position where you are humbled on a daily basis in a fun and safe way so that everything else feels easy. And two would be like solo missions, right? So for me, that's ruck marches, that's float tanks, that's ice baths where I'm thinking about either nothing or very deeply about my place in this universe. Going on long walks with the dogs alone. These things I do every single week, and I get very different things from them, but I have learned so much. The one I always tell people is, I was in a float one day and I just realized that every time I say something, I'm doing it right now. Every time I say something that I'm a little sensitive about and I don't know how it's going to be received, I curl my toes. I don't know, but now I know that about myself. And it's almost like a spidey sense, because I feel my toes curling and I go, oh shit, am I ready to say that? Like right now I'm blushing. I can feel the blood rushing to my head. I think about me sometimes. And because I understand and know me, now it's easier for me to know you. And it's easier for me to not be defensive when you say something we disagree about, because I go like, oh, cool. Like this is a moment where I can learn. And it's because I spend every single week, I spend time thinking about me and my place in the world.
That's super important. And, such great info. I think that I'm all for, my thing is messy action. I love messy action, like just get in there and get crazy.
Sure.
But what they're missing in that statement is there's messy action and then there's reflection. Messy action, reflection, messy action, reflection. And one of the things that I champion, and the one of the things that I think I respect, is seasons of life. Like there's time where the hammer is floor to the floor, no brakes, the brake fluids, we're out of it. And then there's time where I just kind of like sleep a little more that month. And like, I'm just recharging. And I think when you can kind of dial in those, Dan Sullivan's one of my favorite authors, who's a big coach for a long time. And he says, you're watching entrepreneurship these days and their schedules are resembling more of like entertainers and athletes more than ever. is kind of like, you have your days where the spotlight's on, you have your days where you're off. And it's not that I'm not working on those days, but I'm not obligated to work if I don't want to. And I still might work, but it allows me the space to say, maybe not as much. And I don't know, I just find myself like really fired up to step into Monday instead of feeling like Saturday or Friday just happened. I don't know. That's just
I agree with that. I think our mutual, I don't know if you're friends with her, but Layla Hormozi talks about seasons of yes and seasons of no. And I think that's a brilliant way to look at it. But also too, as entrepreneurs and as visionaries, what is visionaries? Visionaries are people that visualize things. And so if I was going to write a book, or if I was going to make a program, or if I was going to give a presentation for weeks, it's only in here. For weeks, I'm laying things out and I'm blowing them up. That's why I like float tanks, because in a float tank, I'll actually mentally blow up a business or a speech or a project. And I literally, it looks like an engineering diagram in my mind. Right.
Yeah,
and so it's like, oh, that makes sense. And oh, that doesn't make sense. Why are we doing that? They don't even want to be here. Like, it's so many things have become so clear to me. I once went into a float tank with a blank mind and came out with not only a business idea, but the name, the logo, and the address that we ended up moving into was all fixed. Now business, go ahead.
I've never done a float tank before.
Bro, come to my house.
I know I am. But when we're running up north for sure. But hear me out. Yeah. Same thing happened to me. I went into a massage with nothing.
There you go.
Halfway through, I got the masseuse, who's a friend, to stop, and I wrote out an entire business plan on the whiteboard, and that's what we're currently building right now.
Oh, that's so great, man! Isn't that awesome? So let me ask you this.
So to finish your thing. What I'm realizing that we have to do as we continue to scale is protect decisions.
Yes.
That's like, meaning like, are we eating good? Are we emotionally healthy? Are we spending enough time away from work? Because these decisions are getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if we're making those decisions in haste, or not like 100% who we are, then we're not making the right decision.
Yeah. When I engineer my calendar, which I definitely do, again, I don't have a program, but if I did, this would be in there. I have non-negotiables. Like I said, at least 3 times a week, I'm doing collective elective suffering. At least once a week, I'm going on a 2 to 4 hour ruck or individual solo mission. I have family time built in. My schedule has Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu blocked off 5 days a week now, period. The calendar's not open, dude. And I think that if you can put those things in place that allow you to show up, then you'll be able to show up, and you do so with gusto, right? Like you talk about waiting for Monday because you had a badass Saturday and Sunday. Dude, you're traveling the world. You're living in an RV. This is awesome. Like the real estate investor who travels the world in an RV, doesn't even own real estate. I love it, man. Or whatever. I don't want to write your own book for you.
It's Steve, I really fucked him up. I'm the Airbnb guy that stays in hotels. Yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
But it's interesting. I think I mentioned this on your podcast. For me, there's so many big decisions happening right now, and we're expanding and we're scaling. Like, I need the space for my mind to roam. And like, my walks in the morning are my non-negotiables. God, it's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, when the sun's coming up and like I'm listening to my book or like I'm reading my book, like, man, those are just for like 2 years straight now. Like, those are just, and it was funny because I remember I ran into this real estate guy, and he was like 85 and he was still selling real estate. He was the happiest dude in the world. He's like, dude, for 5 years straight, I walk 3 miles every morning, rain or slide. And he's like, it's my non-negotiable. And he's like, He was just so happy. And he was like, it was his time, And I don't think enough people have those in their life. They don't have non-negotiables.
Yeah. And I would even add to that. You can see very quickly as an entrepreneur where this extrapolates to Steve Jobs wearing black turtlenecks, right? Or the fact that we used to have to remember phone numbers and directions to place. And now this occupies that portion of our brain, which means I can put a phone in my pocket. That's got all the directions covered. It's got all the information in the world on it. And now I can think about other stuff. Right. And so the same thing, like Alex Charfen again has, when you start his program, he's got a whole checklist of like, have you automated all your bills? Have you taken care of all your tax stuff? Do you have everything? Just get it off of your plate so you're not thinking about it. You're not worried about the electric. You're not worried about shopping for clothing. I wear flip-flops or one pair of shoes every day. That's it. Unless I'm rocking, I wear boots. But I wear the same. There's 5 shirts that are in rotation. If you watch my podcast, it's fucking boring. It's all olive, drab, and black. This is the first time I've worn a color in months. And I think what you're doing is you're taking those micro decisions off your plate so that you have the space to be like, okay, what area of the empire should we expand today? Right? Like that takes.
Well, it's funny that you said that. That same thing that you were talking about in your float tank, where you see it up and it's constructed. I do that with my personal self.
Good.
And what I mean by that is here's communication, here's knowledge, here's personality, here's sales, here's everything. And every morning I'm kind of looking at it and I go, okay, what marker are we going to slide up today? What are we're going to dive into private equity, and then we're going to do some workouts, and we're going to do some push-ups, and that's going to help the mind. And then we're going to eat good. And then we're going to talk to this person who's going to expand my brain. And it's like, that is slowly moving. And it's like, my buddy said this to me. He goes, be careful that you don't realize how great you are at something that you find it to be too easy to do over and over again. And he was like, dude, you're like really good at Airbnb. Like, don't run away from it. It's like a skill and it's very popular. And it was like, okay. And so then we like decided to like put a focus on it. And here we go. We got a fund. We got this, it's like, that doesn't mean I'm going to do it forever. It just means that like, hey, you put in 7 years, like you made it farther than most people do. And you've got the battle scars to prove it. And now you can go and teach others how to do it. And it's actually something I really enjoy because it creates financial freedom. But I didn't want to do it for so long because I was over it. But it's not about me anymore. It's for other people and teaching them. And so then I can find peace in that moment.
You just nailed it. So that's how the great entrepreneurs do it. Is maybe they're great at Airbnb or programming or whatever. The great entrepreneurs are the ones that can take that and they can take the thing that's in their brain and they can download it into SOPs. I know people, I was a commercial banker with, 10 to $500 million companies. And the thing that limited them the most is the head of that company a tribal leader, or are they able to download the skills and expertise and Rolodex down into that next level of management so that there can be succession? If there can, now there's room for wings to spread. Right. And so if I were you, just using you as an example, because you did, the thing isn't going to be how good can you get with the Airbnbs before you can move on. It's like, how quickly can I train someone to be me? How quickly can I replace myself effectively and efficiently to where somebody is going to be just as good, if not better than me at that thing? And I think that's what really separates the best leaders.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. I love it.
That's great.
People want to find your podcast, they want to follow the journey. How would they do that?
So I have the Spear and Clover podcast, which is at Spear and Clover on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everything. Spearandclover.com. And I'm Jason Skeesick on Instagram as well. The big thing I'm doing this year, I have nothing to sell right now. I may in the future. For me, it's listen to the podcast. If you're an entrepreneur, and I like to call them renegade entrepreneurs, people that are swimming against the stream, and you want to tell your story, reach out to me directly. I would love to have you on the show.
Love it. Dude, retired per se, doing podcasts, the dream life.
Yes, sir.
Dude,
yes, sir.
Thank God I have other things to do because I would record about 15 a day. So,
I would, man.
Yeah. Guys, if you like this episode, send it to a friend and we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Construct Your Life with Austin Linney. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and pay it forward by sharing with a friend. Most importantly, take this opportunity to start constructing your life by taking immediate action on what you learned. For show notes, resources, and more information on one-on-one coaching with Austin, visit constructyourlifepodcast.com.